Welcome to our Life Force Nation podcast, everyone. We're going to get right to our topic this evening as our guest speaker tonight is Shelagh McFarlane, and she has a lot of incredible knowledge to share, including the 5 key deceptions used to capture regulatory and financial control of your town. Before we do, we're going to just take a deep breath of life force energy. And I want you to all just to place here. Let me just have to admit a few people here. Sheila, I'm just going to mute you for a moment. There we go. Okay, everyone, place your hand on your heart. Make this sovereign declaration your own. I am the architect of my energy. I direct it toward what matters most. My power grows when I align action with insight, not when I push blindly. I am sovereign in how I show up. Exhaustion does not define me. I reclaim my authority over my body, mind, and time. I move with intention, knowing that each small step rebuilds my strength. My creativity and my wisdom are limitless, even in moments of stillness. I generate results through aligned effort, not through force or struggle. Each decision I make honors both my capacity and my vision. And so it is. And if we can all send some healing love vibes to Karen Hannah, that would be wonderful. She's here, but she's not feeling very well. Sending you lots of love, Karen. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about emotional sovereignty in our private member group. You are here to rise up from feeling powerless and reactive in life to stepping fully into your sovereignty as a creator of your reality. This is the path from victim consciousness to your sovereignty as a creator. And you are here moving into consciously designing your life, where your energy and your choices and your truth guides your actions rather than circumstances or any other man or woman outside of you. And if you would like to learn more about becoming a private member of Life Force Nation, you can visit our website at lifeforcenation.ca and mark your calendar. Saturday, January 31st, we have Erin Johnstone offering a workshop. It's Equity 101, an introduction to equity for all of our members. We will be sending out that more information about the course sometime this week, but I just want to make sure that you mark your calendar. Okay, I think everyone here is excited to hear what Shelagh has to say. We've had her here on the podcast a couple of years ago, and she also was a guest speaker at our Sovereign Living Conference in Calgary in September. The audience was so thrilled to have her there, and so was I. Her presentation was exceptional. So we invited her back here to educate and entertain us once again with her awesome wisdom and her humor. Shelagh is an author of the Prague Primer. She's going to be talking about that, and an advocate who fully understands the municipal governments and how Canada was usurped by the global to local UN Agenda 2030. We're all familiar with that. Started in 1992, and she also ran for mayor in Guelph in 2022 to stop the global government takeover, where it starts locally in our city halls. So in this podcast, Sheila is going to outline the 5 key deceptions used to capture regulatory and financial control over your town. She will also provide simple, peaceful steps that we can take to immediately restore local sovereignty. And once Sheila has completed with her presentation, we're going to open it up for Q&A at the end. Now, Esther is usually here doing the Q&A portion. However, she's not able to be here this evening. Please write your questions in the chat in the usual format so they're easy for me to find. I'm just going to paste an example in the chat. Welcome back, Sheila. It's been a while since we've had you here, and wow, again, your presentation at the conference was my favorite, one of my favorites anyway. So glad you're here, and yeah, the room is yours.
Thanks so much for having me on, Karen, and thanks for having me to the Calgary conference at the end of September. Like I was saying earlier, that was the first conference or first event that I had done that was a presentation of both publications, the POG primer, which outlined how our towns got hijacked by the United Nations Agenda 2030 and the founding documents that came in, and my second publication that I just released in July, which is the POG Protocol, which outlines how we get out of this United Nations agenda because it's all being done at the local level. It was a brilliant, brilliant plan that they came up with. And so the protocol, I didn't really want to present or talk about it until I knew what to do about it. So I'm just starting now to do presentations with the two of them together. It never made sense for me to just talk about the problem and leave people hanging and guessing. And so, yeah, I've spent the last year and a half since we talked. I think we talked in 2023, or maybe even just after I ran for mayor in 2020, yeah, the beginning of 2023, about taking back your towns. And yeah, I'm going to walk through the first part of my presentation was walking through the POG primer. All of these are available on my website at shelaw.ca, SHELAW.ca. My pronouns are she and law specifically, and no adjective in front of law either, I think is where we get trapped in that. So, yeah, the POG protocol, the POG primer, there's some handouts there. There's all the original United Nations founding, not all of them, but some of the key United Nations documents that came to towns in the 90s that took over. And yeah, please go to my website. There's all sorts of information there. And also, I'm on Facebook as Shelagh Hunter. But those are the only two platforms that I'm on. But you can always reach me at editor@sheila.ca or on Facebook. So yeah, POG, POGG is an acronym for Peace, Order, and Good Governance. It's a doctrine in law that states that a government is only called a government when their laws are made in the spirit of peace, order, and good governance. And obviously, what we have now are tyrannical and de facto governments. And ultimately, now people are realizing that these are only corporations and public private partnerships that are masquerading as government or governing institutions. A government is a trust relationship, and that means trust law. It's not a corporate relationship, which means UCC or commercial law. And this is where we've been duped and lost. We've become customers in our own country instead of beneficiaries or benefactors. So the this that conference that in Calgary, I ran a little short of time presenting on the protocol part. So I'm just going to go quickly through the primer, which is the history of the documents, because I don't really want to talk about the past. I think now is a crucial time that we've just got to only focus on solutions and getting out. And once we're out of it, then we have a pause in order to fully educate, fully understand, fully read. But my focus has always been let's stop these pens from signing and agreeing to any more sustainable development goals. And you'll see in the primer and the protocol that all of this boils down to the mayor position in your town or your reeve or your warden. They are acting as a fiduciary for the public accounts or for the geographical area, although they're not. And so they're getting de facto mayors. I call them de facto, meaning they're using the title, but only in theory or in fact. They're not legitimate mayors, which are true trustees, fiduciaries, but they're launching emergency orders or even legislating pharmaceutical products using the mayor position in your town. And that's the only thing that we've got to focus on is stopping that mayor's pen or correcting the jurisdiction that that mayor is in or replacing and removing them. And this is what my 9 solutions are in the protocol. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. The primer information came from a friend of mine, Ron Stevens in Kincardine. He showed me the original founding documents in mid 2000s of the which are the United Nations Municipal Primer that came down and the United Nations Local Agenda 21 Planning Guide. And those are both on under resources in my site. I highly recommend you go and read them because you'll start to see the buzzwords coming in. They talk about, oh, we need to restructure local government and this is for the common good. And it shows how these developers and investors and these green programs took over from your local issues and your local initiatives. So the primer I dedicated to Ron Stevens, who ran for mayor several times. He ran for independent provincially and libertarian to try to stop this agenda. And ultimately, we all know that elections don't work. And then my late husband, Art Koborinsky, ran for mayor in 2014 in Huron Kinloss in tandem with me when I ran for councillor in Kincardine. And we were both trying to take down not only the United Nations agenda at the local level, but we were also challenging our mortgage. We were in the middle of a foreclosure, and Art knew that if you had a de jure, legitimate, properly sworn in mayor, that mayor would have the highest authority in that geographical area, which means they can open and close any business under the direction of the constituents, mind you, but they would be a head sheriff that they would be able to shut down any bank in their geographical area that was engaged in fraud. So that's one of the reasons why he ran for mayor is all of his information showed that if he could step in as mayor, he would have the highest authority over not only the house that was being foreclosed on, but the crown land that it was sitting on, and the two of us, the crown subjects that were living in the house too. That mayor would be head fiduciary over all of us. So I dedicate the protocol to him because he was able to trace the birth certificate bond or the original registration surety, traced it all the way to the mayor would be the ultimate administrator of it. It wouldn't be a premier, it wouldn't be a prime minister, it wouldn't even be a lawyer. It would be the mayor that is put in that position as the head administrator of that account. And right now, instead of acting as trustees, like I said earlier, they're corporate officers, and we are acting like trustees. And this is what needs to be corrected is what's the status of that birth bond and what's the status of the people that are administrating it. So the protocol I call a work of art because it was really his information. I had to reconstruct it last year because I understood that he knew the mayor had control of the birth certificate, but I had to kind of go and trace back his route from the mayor back to the birth certificate to see how to undo it. So I go through now the slides aren't working, unfortunately. I'm a little tech challenged, but if anybody wants them, I can send them to you. They will be uploaded on my website. I guess it's a big file. But I go through why elections don't work at all, at all, at all, at any level. Number one, basically the rule is that corporations can't run for office and they can't run as trustee, and corporations can't vote. And yet, when you're voting as that all caps as a corporation. And when I ran, I had to run as that all caps Shelagh McFarlane as a corporation. So, right from the get-go, elections are fraud because nobody can vote and nobody can run for public office. So I went through how I actually won in 2014, and I had a screen share of my results, and they flipped the numbers the next morning, and my incumbent got in. And there's no way you can challenge election fraud either, other than going to court, and we know that the courts are all captured too. And by the time you would get through court, the 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 councillors or the mayor's term, a 4-year term would be over. They would have done their damage. So you're just always running behind this game if you try to fix it with elections. So I've never been involved in provincial or federal because, as we've seen in the last couple of years, Canada, the illusion, it's all, and what Tim Stein was presenting in Calgary, all of those layers are the crown stuff is just all de facto. It's just basically the Hudson Bay Company, service company masquerading as a government. So the solution is not in an election. You will see in the protocol that one solution is the next local election, but that's only to use that local election to flip your jurisdiction, and it's a last case resort. So yeah, those elections don't work, and and neither do deputations. I've only done one deputation, and that was in 2023 when I first published the POG primer. It was sent to the Kawartha Lakes officials, the Mayor Doug Elmsley, and the councillors, and I did a deputation in conjunction with Angel Godso and went in just to get the POG primer on the public record in the municipality minutes and to put the officials on notice that they're acting in three different legal capacities and that the constituents are not consenting to anything they're doing and that they need to meet with the constituents. And that's the one deputation I've done, because deputations, you're talking to the corporation. You're already in the belly of the beast, and to try to plead with in the belly of the beast to let you go is an impossibility. So but yeah, I start off in the primer going through the truckers convoy. In the truckers convoy in 2022, basically how I saw it, and I documented it when I was there, is they proved that the United Nations had de facto possession of all levels of Canadian government, all of them, and and that they because and that they were willing to use the War Measures Act against us, which they called, and that ultimately Klaus Schwab admitted that he had penetrated all levels of Canadian government using the Global Mayor Initiative programs and the Global Leadership Initiatives, which was Chrystia Freeland and all of that. So he basically admitted it and was very proud that he had taken over, not just Canada, but all countries using this, and that everybody will be happy and they will own nothing, you know. So, but they basically proved that the foreign government was calling the shots here in Canada. That means it's de facto government. It's not legitimate. It's a corporation masking. And the Criminal Code of Canada, Section 15, says that no one is to obey a de facto government, nor de facto laws being made by a de facto government. So we actually have a duty to stop paying these and recognizing these frauds and then to remove them. It's never wise to leave a trustee in position that is breaching your trust and spending your money on a foreign depopulation agenda. I go through a little bit of what de facto government is in the primer. Basically, it's international public-private partnership contracts that are used to overturn the rightful government. They take possession of the governing powers in the area without right, and they maintain themselves by force and captured regulatory control, which we're seeing now with these city corporations, the City of Calgary, the City of Guelph. And the key to this, though, that was in 1992, Canada signed on to the UN system. It ceased to operate as a de jure government or whatever close to it, and it began to operate as a United Nations member state. And then each province was restructured to be a subnational UN member state. And then those provinces were to set up the franchises of the city states below them. So this is what we're in now. We're in a corporate structure that's made to look like Canada and Ontario and Alberta, but it's not. It's a public-private partnership, which is just a contract. Okay, and it traps our officials in right from the get-go so that they are only to implement 17 sustainable goals, nothing more, nothing less. You can't go in and talk about your roads or your schools or your food or nothing. They are only addressing the 17 sustainable goals. So when the trouble when you have a de facto government, it makes for a de facto mayor. What we have now are green mayors or strong mayors or global mayors, and anytime you have an adjective in front of a word, you've qualified it. These are not de jure legitimate mayors, fiduciaries. These are just business owners, and if what the city tells the mayors to do, the mayors have to do. And there's been a lot of whistleblowing now too with mayors that are saying, "Hey, I'm not running the show. The CAO, the chief administrative officer is," and the chief administrative officers are going in the background going, "No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not," and taking them to the code of ethics and charging them for lying to the public when actually the mayors are correct. The chief administrative officers are running everything in your town, and that needs to be flipped. And it's all just done during doing an oath. In the primer, I go through a chart that explains the difference in the three offices. They can either go into a public office and become the de jure mayor. They can swear in to go into the private corporation, which they're doing, and becoming CEOs instead of mayors. And then as a CAO, they can swear into the public-private partnership and become a head of council, which is international status, which is why they're able to sign agreements for Johnson and Johnson pharmaceuticals, and why they're able to travel all over the world. A real mayor is not supposed to leave their geographical area for any reason whatsoever. So there's a simple chart there that explains the difference in the jurisdiction of these offices. One will be public, the other private, the other international. The difference in the oaths that they would take. In order to be a mayor, they would take the oath of elected office as a trustee, but right now they're taking the declarations of office, which dumps them into the municipal corporation or the municipality, and then off they go to the agenda. So I go through the two key documents in the primer that did the flip. The first one was the municipal UN municipal primer, and this one came down in 1994 that was telling all mayors and councillors, "Hey, Canada's just signed on to this new green program. It's really good. The whole world's doing it. We're going to change how you do your local government, but don't worry about it. Everything's under control." So read this document, and this was priming the local officials, the local area, to get ready for a change in government. So this one was key, the UN primer, and it's one of the reasons why I called mine the POG primer, is I'm priming the areas to go back into their local jurisdictions and their local issues. So that was the first one that came down. And then the second one that was pivotal was the local agenda planning guide, local agenda 21 planning guide. This one came down in 1996 that was basically said, hey, by 96, you guys were supposed to have your own local Agenda 21s in place. If you didn't or you don't, guess what? We have a plan that you can follow. And so basically it was like, do this. And this is where the CAOs took over, the city corporations took over. They take over your elections, they take over your budgets, they take over your officials, they take over the whole geographical area, and they run the show, and they're all trained in the agenda. They're unelected, unaccountable, unavailable, and they need to be either removed or put back into their capacity where if they screw up, they're fired. And they're under the control of the mayor, and the mayor is under the control of the constituents that elected them. So go in and go through those two documents that came in the 90s. And mayors and councillors at the time didn't have any idea what was going on. They just, oh, Canada signed is doing it. Oh, I guess this is what we're doing. So that's when they started introducing these foreign developers and investors and the smart technologies and oh, we're going to surveil. And they were pushing us slowly towards these 15-minute cities without telling us what was going on. So I go through sort of a little bit of the little bit of the UN primer and the local Agenda 21, but they were basically introducing jurisdictional reform. They introduced amalgamation, regionalization, districts and tiers. Okay, and everybody knows that, or what that was around the time when amalgamation came in. Towns had a choice whether to amalgamate or not, but they really didn't. They were merged into these regions, and now people are struggling to find out where their government is because in a region they can push it. Oh, sorry, that's not our responsibility. That's a province. Oh, sorry, that's not ours doing. That's tier one's doing. And so it's a way of bypassing any responsibility while the agenda marches forward in your town, and you're paying for it too. So it was some of the wording in the Agenda 21 guide was that the local Agenda 21 process requires local governments to decentralize governments and become more dedicated agents of the sustainable development agenda. So this is how they sold it, as well as getting funding. And ultimately, Elizabeth Dowdeswell came into Ontario, and she was the UN Executive Director of the United Nations Environment and Development. So she was specifically brought to Canada in 92 to restructure all the provinces. So what you're seeing in Alberta with Danielle Smith, she's still under that subnational UN member state, so she's got to disengage. If she wants to separate, quote unquote, she's got to disengage from the agenda. That will disengage from the crown, and that can lead to ultimate state sovereignty. I don't know if it's going down that route or not. So, um, I went through the fact that the municipal acts that we all get doesn't have the word mayor in it or councillor. The Your Alberta one, the Municipal Government Act, does mention mayor, but only in the index. And then when under mayor, it says, see chief elected official. Well, that's a title change. That municipal act is not a governing act for a mayor. They've qualified saying, oh, we're calling a mayor a chief elected official or a head of council or a CEO, and therefore they're under this act. So that's one of the key things that we have to correct is that mayor, fiduciaries, trustees are not to be following a municipal act. They are not municipal officers. And the word municipal actually means incorporated business. And I love the guide that you were handing out in Calgary. Wealth of information there. Just black and white right there. Well, very well done, you guys. And congratulations on your name change too. I meant to say, Life Force Canada to Life Force Nation. That was a beautiful reflection of the changing of times. So of restoring our nations. So
Thank you,
but
Sheila.
yeah, yeah, no, that was phenomenal. But you'll notice in your municipal acts it doesn't use the word mayor. It changes them into a head of council and then specifies the duties of the head of council. And so it's a bait and switch that lawyers use. We all know legalese, which is weasel words, and weasel words are words that have more than one meaning, so that lawyers or officials can weasel out a fraud. Lawyers even call them those words. And so, and I even asked when I ran for mayor, I asked for where the mayor oath would be or the public oath. And I got told from the solicitor, oh, well, municipalities have decided to call mayors head of councils now. Ha 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 ha. It's like, well, that's kind of a title change and kind of a jurisdictional change and kind of everything change. But the solicitors don't work for us. They work for the municipal corporations, which are all owned and controlled by the provincial level, which are all captured under a public-private partnership. So the whole thing's a mess, but it's beautiful in the fact that they've done it locally, and how it was done, it can be undone, and it's a very simple separation because all of this is being glued together by the founding oath that your locally elected officials take. That sets the jurisdiction right then and there. So the final piece that I needed before I ran for mayor in 2022 was to see the emergency orders that mayors were forced to sign in COVID. It was proof that they're actually signing under three different legal capacities at the same time. They're signing as a CEO of the municipal corporation. They're signing as a public mayor, which they were never sworn in to be. And they're signing as a head of council, which is the international title for the public-private partnership. So I show people on the emergency forms that all mayors got in 2020, March 2020, from the United Nations, from directly from these city corporations, were given to the mayor, and mayors ultimately, this is my mayor, Cam Guthrie, they sign as a head of council. This whole thing is saying, hey, a head of council can do this, a head of council of a municipality can do this, can do, and then they get the mayors to sign as a head of council, and they sneak in underneath that they're mayors, but they were never sworn in as mayors. And the fact that this was distributed on with a city logo head, this means it's issued from the corporation. So this one piece of paper was all I needed for proof of title fraud. Is they're signing as a private CEO, as a public mayor, and as an international agent, all on one page. And this is how they dump your public securities and your public assets and everything into United Nations territory. They're saying that the public mayor can take the public assets and the public securities and zip, put it under United Nations control. So this is all we need to deal with, and this is what we're doing now. And I'll get into that when I get into the protocol. So, and this is why Laura Chambers' deputation went so viral last year. I think it was November 2024. It just went huge. And because she was presenting to the city of Calgary about how these are public-private partnerships, this is the United Nations agenda. You guys are in three different legal capacities. You need to fix it. And that's why it went viral, because it was getting to the heart of the matter. You guys are in title fraud. You're signing with no authority, and this needs to be corrected. So, I was really pleased to see Laura's. I don't know if she's on this call, but yeah, really well done. Yeah, so then I kind of I get into what did I get into? Where am I now? Okay, now I'm into the protocol. So that was the primer, just a bit about the history. These are only 22 pages long. So this one just briefly goes through everything that happened to take your mayors. And then the POG protocol I produced in July, which is only 20 pages. And this I walk through all five local frauds that are happening, starting with the local election fraud. So the primer just explains that they're an election fraud. They're controlling your local elections. They're controlling what oath gets issued. They're controlling the agenda. They're controlling your elected officials. But the protocol will explain what that local election leads to and how we get out of it. So the five key frauds. I wrote this in two versions in legalese, which gets into sort of the technical and the legislation and sort of the results of what these frauds breach. And it's a little bit more techy, but it can be used to submit into court as evidence explaining and proving the frauds that they're involved in. The five local frauds that are happening is number one, your local election interference, which starts the whole thing off. And with local election interference, that leads to a breach of trust, because you've elected these officials to be trustees and to administrate your public trust account, but they're hijacked, which means your trust account is hijacked. So now you're in breach of trust. And breach of trust and fraud will cross all realms of law, whether it's common law, civil law, criminal law, contract law. Any breach of trust just nullifies everything, negates it all. Any fraud will nullify everything, negates it all. And this is the beauty of these solutions, is we need to take advantage of this time now and call this for what it is. It's a breach of trust. These trust accounts are actually public securities. Okay, which are the birth certificate bonds that are registered when you're born, worth a lot of money. They're registered public securities. So when you have a breach of trust, you're actually having a breach of public securities. Now we're getting into pretty dangerous territory. That's a theft of crown property. That's theft in general and extortion. So this is why we really need to get these officials out of this capacity if they want to be, or we need to remove them if they don't. So, because when you get into breach of public securities, you're basically into human trafficking and slavery now because they've got control of your wallet and are buying whatever they want with your credit cards. When you're in a breach of public security and you have no ability to challenge anything, then we're in de facto possession of all judicial arresting and policing powers. We have no way to challenge this because the Crown has jurisdiction over all of our courts using their legal services. And then ultimately that leads to the fifth fraud, which is de facto possession of all our peace powers. We have no peace officers, we have no lawful sheriffs, we have nobody that will come in and do any arresting of these officials, even though they're in a depopulation plan, they're injecting 12-year-olds. There was nobody to stop these guys. That should have been a real wake-up call to people that the police officers weren't doing anything, the courts weren't doing anything, and yet people were dying from this. So this truly, we have a duty to correct this. There's no sense having a society if they have no courts, no law, and no peace powers. But this protocol will correct all five frauds at the same time in the safest, most effective, and easiest way. Because again, as I stated, all of this is just glued together by a publicly elected mayor merged with a private corporation, non-government organization. Through an issuing of an oath, they steal the mayor, they lock him into this public-private partnership. Your mayor can't get out. Your corporation's pushing them into the city state, 15-minute city state. And unless you undo this, you're stuck and you're going into the 15-minute city, and the 15-minute cities are your geographical area will either be converted to a 15-minute city, it will be made into green space for the elites, or it will just be bankrupted and non-existent. So again, I can't emphasize enough that this is crucial times, that we're not only in the best place we can be because fraud makes this very easy, but we're also in the most important place to be in the fact that we can't leave this running anymore or any longer. So fraud, once it's proven, vitiates all and everything attached to it. And fraud has no expiration date nor statute of limitations. And all public-private partnerships are fraud because you cannot commingle public and private. No man or mayor, like if I was mayor, I wouldn't be able to serve two masters. I wouldn't be able to do what my constituents wanted me to do, what man wants me to do, and at the same time do what the municipality, the corporation wants me to do. I'm frustrated right from the get-go. Everything I do, the people will want me over in the trust institution doing their local agenda, while the corporation wants me over here. And that's what Matthew 6:24 was about: is that no man can serve two masters. Either he will hate the constituents and love the corporation, or he'll honor the corporation and go against the constituents. So this is actually the POG primer and protocol is kind of scripture and biblical history without referring to any religious document or scripture per se. The POG protocol, I introduce Waldo, the legalese weasel. I wish I had my slides up, but Waldo, the legalese weasel, he walks us through the protocol, showing us where these weasel words are, and to be aware of. And the one key weasel word in the protocol was the word municipality and municipal. And I go through the fact that Canada is actually defined as two levels, federal and provincial, and how we're getting trapped in here is we're getting called a municipal institution. Well, municipal means incorporated, and institution means unincorporated association. So right from the get-go, a municipal institution would be an incorporated institution. So they're incorporating your de jure sovereign, independent, local government, area government with the mayor in charge. They're incorporating this whole structure into the province. And remember, the province and the federal level are sworn onto the agenda. So this is how we lose all control. They take this whole office and your elected officials, mayors and councillors, incorporate them into this municipal institution so it's under provincial jurisdiction, and boom, away they go with the 17 sustainable goals. When remains as a third level independent, Canada has three levels of government, and I know people were arguing that last year. Oh no, it only has two. Canada Inc. only has two defined in section 91 and 92 of the charter, but this is how they fudge it. They get these municipal corporations, the city of Calgary, the city of Guelph, includes the municipalities too. They get these to control everything happening, the election and the oath, and they take this whole office, which includes your treasury, which includes your county courts, which includes your land registry, your local registry, and your local people registry, and dumps them all into Canada Inc. under provincial control, and then these two, away they go. And they pretend, oh yeah, it's still a mayor. No, sorry, it's not a mayor. You have no jurisdiction over a mayor. You do, however, when you turn him into a head of council or a CEO. Yeah, you do. But guess what? We're separating now. So the protocol is a way for towns now to unincorporate from this fraud peacefully. And the fastest that can happen is the sitting mayor voluntarily Rios, which I'll walk through. And the longest could possibly take would be at your next local election. Get your councillors and candidates and your mayors ready and in position, run for election, and if they don't win, they can flip it and disengage there. So that's the weasel word in the protocol was municipality. Nobody knows what it means. It doesn't mean a geographical area. It means a geographical area whose inhabitants are incorporated. And if you look at the definitions, you must read definitions because lawyers are pretty tricky. We all think we know what the word municipal means. We all think we know what council means. No, we don't. And a lot, but you guys do. So I was able to skip through a lot of my slides in Calgary. But even when you put a capital in front of a capital C counselor is different from a lower C counselor, right? One would be this is a change of status that legalese does. It converts it into a whole nother creature. This is similar of God with a capital G is very different from God with a small g. It's a conversion of status. And we're not taught this, so we're going to have to really educate the kids in after this. So when you say you live in a municipality, what you're actually saying is that you live in a corporation or you live in a public-private partnership. So we've got to watch our language. It's getting trapped. And that's another reason why I don't do deputations is because you're going into the municipality to ask to get out of the municipality. And it's like going to the schoolyard bully and begging him to leave you alone. You've got to either not go into the schoolyard and make a whole new school, or you've got to get to that principal or somebody in authority that can deal with that schoolyard bully. Because that's all these CAOs are. Foreign economic hitmen that come in, steal all your money, change your local governance, change the issues that you want to address, and just hijack it. So I go through that the public in a public-private partnership actually means your publicly registered security, your birth certificate bond. And I think your listeners all understand this. But when you see the word public, it really means your publicly registered bond. And people are looking up their CUSP numbers on their birth certificates now and finding out that they're worth over $8 billion through investments. So these certificates, your birth certificate or your life statement of birth surety is worth a lot of money. And that's how they're funding all of this. So unless you get that public security back into under your control, away they go. So the birth certificate represents the public estate, which is the straw man account that the crown forms when you're born, and the private estate, which is the actual registration of birth that your mother signed when you were born. That was basically a bond is created when you're born based on the what you will contribute to Canada Inc. in your lifetime through taxation, through employment. So your value at birth would be, say, $1 million, and then that's invested. And that happened in what, 31, 33, when we went off the gold standard, and money became just credits and numbers on a screen. It wasn't backed by anything. So, I go through the fact that Canada Inc. is a crown corporation and its only purview is to administrate registered public securities. That's the only purview that Canada Inc. has. It's not a government. It's just a crown corporation there to administrate public securities. And look what it's morphed into. 15-minute cities that are watching everything we're doing and monitoring everything we're doing and injecting us with whatever they want. But really, Canada Inc. was only Hudson Bay Company there to administrate public securities, which is money, not people. So I go through in before 1992, Canada was deemed a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary democracy, more or less. Although it was running as a crown corporation in military receivership, which we're seeing now. One of the reasons why Mark Carney is over here is Canada Inc. is in probate, and he's shutting it down and creating something else. He's not running a government there. So I really wish people would stop worrying about what Carney's doing and what Trump is doing and all of this nonsense. Really, if you stick with your local level, that stuff is just service nonsense, Muni World, Walmart, whatever. It has nothing to do with you once you remove your public security from their possession, from their de facto possession. So I go through what is that local level of government, it's actually an independent office. It's a trust institution, like a community trust. And the head of the head of government would be the mayor, overseeing the CAO and all administration. He would oversee the clerk and the treasury and the money in full transparency under, the constituents' watchful eye. They'd have to balance the books at the end of the year. If they didn't, they're in malfeasance, or can be fired. And if they do any breach of trust or fraud, breach of trust is a minimum of 14 years in jail per breach. So if you got 1 million people in your town, that's 1 million times 14 years that you're going to jail for every breach of account. And so this protocol, it was a way actually for me to help sitting local officials get out of this safely and peacefully and granted lawful redemption, because they are actually not only involved in breach of trust, but they're involved in attempted murder and murder. Any child, anybody that died in COVID from one of these injections is directly attributable to, because those injections could not have happened in your geographical area if that mayor didn't sign the emergency order. The World Health Organization would not have been able to come within that geographical area to perform their clinical trials if the mayor refused to sign that emergency order. Okay. And that was one of the reasons why I ran for mayor in 2022, is I wanted to get into position. And if I won, to correct that oath, re-invoke the trust institution, claim those public securities from Crown de facto possession and United Nations de facto possession, and then regroup in the area. I knew in 2022 there was no hope in hell that I could win. One, due to fraud. Oh, I got a visiting kitty cat here. One, because of election interference. But yeah, there was no way I could get into office. But I ran just to get my name on the ballot so I could challenge the election. Now, the election was in 2022. I have forever to challenge it because there's no limitation on frauds. But I have now a way to challenge my last local election, which I'm in the middle of doing with Cam Guthrie here in Guelph. in to walk him forward and say, hey, I think you're in fraud. So I just wanted to get my name on the ballot as a as a candidate to challenge the man that won. And so now that's what I'm in the process of doing. I wish I had more backup in Guelph. Guelph is a very difficult town. We've got a university with a lot of green, woke people. We've got a real health community with the hospitals and rehab centers, which is very high pharmaceutical. We have in the university the GMO experiments and all of that stuff. So it's a very difficult, huge town, and now just full of immigrants. And so I haven't been able to really walk this forward in Guelph to show people. I wish I was living in a smaller town in 2022, but I'm working with other towns, smaller towns, doing this now in conjunction with doing it in Guelph. So that's the only reason why I ran. But the local level is a trust institution in history. It's supposed to be an unincorporated, unorganized area, not belonging to the Crown, not belonging to the United Nations. It belongs to the area settlers, settlers, meaning the people that live there, and the area settlors, settlors, which are the owners of the birth certificates or the publicly registered securities and assets in that area. So that's what the office of the mayor belongs to. The people in the area that live there and their public securities that they're electing him to administrate on their behalf. And this is where we're at now. We can use that mayor to take control of those public securities so that it makes your work, what you're doing with the private membership stuff, a hell of a lot easier, because once the mayor as proxy pulls them from the Crown Registry, then it's only a matter of people being able to then take their public security, set up their own private trust, pay their public bills with the interest, and everything goes back to normal. So this is why mayor is a pivotal piece, and you'll see in the protocol why the globalists targeted that position. They could bypass all levels of national, federal legislation. They could bypass all provincial legislation. They could set an order in Geneva, and boom, it was implemented on the ground the next day using the local mayors. So it was a brilliant plan what they did. But unfortunately, it was nefarious and hijacked by criminals. But they did it stupidly and quickly. And like I said, it's an easy fix. But your mayor, when they're properly sworn in, if I took the proper oath to be your trustee, I would be agreeing to act as your power of attorney over your public security, basically. That's what the mayor fiduciary is supposed to be. You're electing him to be, or me to be, a chief executor of the local trust, the community trust that has the legal titles of the property. You're electing me to be a head magistrate of the area, the head sheriff. Sheriff comes from the Shire Reeve. They were the Reeves of the Shires. And those Shire Reeves became the sheriffs, the head law officer of that area. And that's how we lost law here in Canada, is they hijacked all our officers of law sworn into law, and they're sworn into legal instead. And that's owned and controlled by the Crown, which we know now too. A mayor becomes the head local legislator of all bylaws. So constituents would determine in their wards what bylaws they want. Do they want the red cameras? Do they want the 40-kilometer? Do they want food markets? Whatever. They take it to their counselor. The counselors form a board of trustees. They decide, well, okay, this is what we want to do. It gets tendered out. They get bids, local bids on the projects, like say if it's snow removal, and then the mayor's job is only as chief executor of those accounts to discharge the money to fund what the constituents want. You don't got to go to no province for funding. You don't got to go to Canada for funding. You don't got to go to United Nations for funding. You can use your own local community treasury to create your money. And this is what I was trying to explain to Cal Washington and I wish I had more time with him at the end of September, is that Cal Washington's Empower work fits beautifully with POG in the fact that he's launching notices of liability and creating bills of exchange, but he lacks two things. He doesn't have a lawful court to enforce them, and he doesn't have a lawful bank to recognize bills of exchange and to monetize them. Now, this, once you get back your local areas, boom, you got your local county courts again under law. Sorry, sweetie, I'm talking. Um, and so the empowered people can immediately take their notices of default to that county court and get that trustee defaulted immediately. And also, by invoking the local treasury, that's a non-central banking treasury, it would be able to recognize all the Empower members' notices of liability and bills of exchange or promissory notes. It would be able, so it fits in perfectly with his. And I was wanting to talk to him instead of trying to send these notices to the Pope or to Carney or Trudeau or to Trump and all those persons, those corporate persons that are protected in under Crown immunity, United Nations immunity, and just basically corporate immunity. That if he addressed all of the notices of liability to the sitting mayor, the acting CAO, chief administrative officer, and the clerk, if all of those got sent the notices of liability and they were the only ones on the respondents, we could have it done like that. And it's way cheaper for people too because local officials have to live in their town. You don't got to go to Ottawa. You don't got to go over to Italy to serve Pontus Maximus or anything. All of these guys are in your town, which means that you know where their house is and their assets are, which means they're lienable. And that's what backs this enforcement too, is these guys got nothing to lose. They can sign orders to inject all of us. We can be dying left, right, and center. They got nothing to lose. They're not going to lose their house. They're not going to lose their job. They're not going to lose anything because they're covered by this immunity. But going on, your mayor not only would be local legislator, so there wouldn't be able to be bylaws passed that you didn't agree with. You'd be part of the whole council there, the lower C council, not the capital C council. He would be head administrator of all the public security accounts. And so you would have a direct power of attorney, a direct lawyer to speak to on your behalf locally. He would be the peace officer in the area and the sworn sheriff magistrate that could also swear in other peace officers, other deputy sheriffs. This is just we're going back to the way things were, people. This is not a new idea. This is not anarchy. This is just simply unincorporating from this fraud, reestablishing your unincorporated areas that are not members of the United Nations that don't belong to the crown. And then also a mayor becomes a head justice of the peace. And that's how important that mayor position. They act at that apex locally, and they can open any business and they can shut down any business under your direction, under the town's direction. It's not a control position. It's a very honorable position because you're serving the people and you're protecting the people. These de facto strong mayors are serving the United Nations and protecting the United Nations. I wouldn't want to be a sitting mayor right now. And I wrote the protocol basically as an olive branch to any sitting mayor or councillor that realizes they are under a United Nations agenda, a foreign government implementing a depopulation plan with no way out other than to re-oath and get the hell out of Dodge and invoke the local institution. They'd have the backing of all the constituents. They'd have the backing of all the constituents' public securities and money and full support. And they would actually go from being a global zero to a local hero like that, just by changing their oath, getting back into public jurisdiction from private. So this was a real olive branch, and we're working on now a launch to every Canadian mayor, and I think there's over 3,500 of them. Where we want to launch this in tandem unilaterally to every mayor, making them an offer. The first one to re-oath and to become a de jure mayor wins and will default all of the other mayors. as de facto. And if all mayors receive this and know that one of them can jump ship and leave the other ones going down with the ship, it might just precipitate how this will happen. But I'm just a one-man band, so I'm trying to pull together people in all the provinces that where we can pull together a list of all the mayors' names, get all the mayors this information, offer them a chance to re-oath and see which one jumps first. That would be the easiest way to get a sitting mayor to re-oath and help us with this. But it also will prove whether they're dumb or they're dirty. And what I mean by that is if a mayor is implementing a foreign agenda against the people, they're either dumb, meaning they're ignorant and they don't know what they're doing, or they don't know what they're involved in, or they're just not understanding the situation, or they're dirty, meaning they know damn well what they're doing and they're profiting from it hugely and they don't give a damn. And if you've got a dumb or a dirty trustee in office, you can't leave those in office controlling your money. Regardless, they either have to be re-oathed back to public or be removed and replaced. Okay, and so this is why it's imperative that you calling fraud is just like calling fire. You just don't go fire and then leave it. You got to go investigate and put out the fire. So the same with fraud. You just don't yell fraud and expect it to take care of itself. This is what we are now, is we've got to close this deal. So, yeah, and then your mayor would sit at that apex, and the local councilors would form a local board of trustees and would take the issues of that ward to the mayor, tender it out, figure out how it's going to be done, get it paid for, and all of it gets paid from that local treasury. You shouldn't have to be paying any property tax, any hydro, any water, any food, any transportation, any fuel. All of those bills get discharged, which is another beautiful selling point in re-oathing, is that boom, all your bills are paid by your public security as soon as your office is re-invoked. So that's again, once one town does this, once one mayor does this and shows that, oh, everybody's not paying their bills, boom, away it goes. That's a selling feature in itself, because those public bonds, those birth certificate bonds are there for you to use like a credit card, like an insurance policy, to pay all your consumer purchases. Your first house, your first car, your tuition, all of it, all of it, all of it, because there's no money. And this is what we have to, so it's got a real good selling point just in there. So the first election fraud I walk through in the protocol, again, I say they run the wrong election. They run a municipal election instead of a local public election. So they're actually running an election for municipal government, not for local government. So right from get-go, you're running the wrong election. They control every aspect of it. When I ran for mayor, they had a municipal portal I had to log on to get my information, and I refused, so I ended up getting the voters list all in hard copy. I got a huge box delivered to my door of the voters list in hard copy because I wasn't going to go through a portal and have that surveillance. But they controlled everything in that election. And I go through in the protocol that if a public official joins a municipal corporation, they cease to be a trustee. So they're de facto again. And when they issue that municipal declaration of office, and you go and read it, it basically says, I, Shelagh McFarlane, the person, the registered person, agree that the office of the mayor is in the municipality of Guelph. So up there, right there, I've said that, oh, the office is in the municipal corporation. So I've just transferred everything by signing that declaration of office. I've transferred all of you and all of Guelph into that municipal corporation, all just done by that first oath that they go under. And this is only applicable to the local level, because at the provincial level, it's owned by the Crown. federal level is owned by the crown, so they have to take an oath of allegiance. They have to pledge allegiance to the king or the queen. The local level only does so because it's been fraudulently usurped into the crown system, but they would pledge allegiance to the local area and the settlers to act on their behalf, to administrate their public securities until their age of majority 18, where they can claim them themselves. And your group knows about how those bonds are supposed to, when we turn 18, we're supposed to be able to go in and say, hey, I'm old enough to administrate my own financial affairs now. Please remove my public security from the public trust or from the Crown Trust Registry. I will now set up my own private trust, which you guys are doing, and have a proxy or a nominee to administrate my public affairs, i.e., pay for whatever I need, which is controlled through the interest of that bond. So once I do a comparison of what municipal government is compared to local government, one, the CAO will be head of the whole structure, which we're witnessing. And in the local government, you'll see that the mayor would have full control. The constituents have full control of the mayor, and the mayor has full control of the money in the area. But right now, they're going into those municipal corporations. Those are controlled by the city CAOs and the city and the provincial clerks. They issue the declaration, and bam, away it goes. And you've lost it right there, right from the get-go. Another reason why deputations don't work. CAO has full control. CAO is a provincial officer. He's trained by the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, specifically in the agenda. He brings the agenda to your town, or she, and those 17 goals, puts it on the budget, and all of a sudden a local issue is climate change. Climate change is not a local issue. It's an international, national issue. Even if a whole town shut down and stopped exhaling CO2, it wouldn't make a blip in of a difference. And that's why it is an international issue. Why are we talking about global climate change on a local agenda? Because we've been hijacked. Your local issues should be your roads, your schools, your water, your septic. Originally, these municipal corporations only had two purviews. One, to take care of water connecting systems so that people get off their independent wells and they had plumbing. And two, to connect septic and sewer so people could get rid of their outhouses and have a septic system or a sewer system. And that was the only thing municipal corporations were to do in an unincorporated area. Then they started doing roads and clearing roads, and then they morphed into what we have now, which are 15-minute cities that want to inject you with foreign substances. So I go through what the difference in the structure of a municipal government that we're in compared to a local governance that they're supposed to be run as. Once you have election fraud, then you run into first off, I walk through a POG restoration of how easy it is to correct this if the sitting mayor reoaths, reinvokes that office. They would immediately take fiduciary control, disengage the public securities, set up the independent treasury, and get out of that crown system. They would set up their local judicial system, so they reestablish the county courts that were there, the people's courts. We used to have a day court and a night court, and they were in law, and those used to be the merchant courts. The small claims courts were where merchants or men and women could go with their disputes without involving the crown, right? So you and I, Karen, if we had a problem, we could go to the local county court, the merchant court, and have an unbiased adjudicator, mediator, or a magistrate look at the situation, at the issue, and make a ruling based in equity, remedy, and restitution, so that the situation is solved and Karen's bad behavior can't continue. It's addressed with immediately. And so if she jerks me around at 2 in the morning, boom, we immediately go to night court and we address it. And I don't know if anybody remembers night court on TV. Your courts have to be available 24/7. You can't, be stopped on the side of the road and arrested and thrown in jail when you haven't been found guilty of anything. So they've lied to us about a lot of things, people, but this restores a lot of things. So they'd reestablish fiduciary control, judicial control, and then they'd establish legislative control. cancel and pause all these bylaws that are downloaded from the province because we're just basically a franchise of the province now. We would regroup in our wards and determine our own bylaws, what we wanted, what we didn't want, and the local area would be an independent legislating unit, which it was. So yeah, restoring that. So then I go through that when you've got a breach of trust, what happens is these municipal corporations, they create a constructive municipal trust instead of a local sovereign trust. Basically, what they do is they deposit your security in an account of the central bank when that birth certificate or that security should actually be held in a security deposit box for your mayor or your power of attorney or your legal representative to administrate. That maintains the value when it's kept in a security deposit box or a treasury. When it's hijacked into the municipal structure, they just create a municipal trust out of it, and then they can run with the money. But it's a constructed trust, which again is fraud. So, and the Clearfield Doctrine says, the Clearfield Doctrine is a doctrine from an American case down 5, I think it was, where the Clearfield Trust Company was taken to court because there was a conflict of interest. They were involved in corporate affairs. And the ruling of that case said that if a trustee agrees to go and work in the corporation, they're no longer trustees. They pledged allegiance to another monster. They're no longer working for you. So these trustees are not acting as trustees. In a breach of trust, how I walk through how to solve that. It would just be a notice of fiduciary assignment to the sitting mayor saying, hey, there was a mistake made. This account, this trust account or birth certificate bond was accidentally put under municipal control. I need you to pull it from there and put it back into a security deposit for you and I to sit down and administrate now. And so it's a direction to your mayor. Hey, there was a mistake. You're supposed to be fiduciary of this. Fix it, remove it, and contact me when it's done, in conjunction with a letter to the clerk. That is actually another provincial agent. You don't elect your clerks, right? The clerks aren't accountable. They're not, that's one of the most key positions in your town is because they control everything coming into your town, everything being filed, everything not being filed. So that clerk actually works for the crown. And that's another one that needs to be republicked. So the notice to the clerks basically says, hey, there was a mistake made. That trust account, that Shelagh McFarlane trust account is supposed to be over here in the treasury with the mayor as trustee. Fix it. Let everybody in the province know, because I don't know what your structure is. I don't know the attorney general, the public guardian, but kick it upstairs. Let everybody know that Shelagh McFarlane now is over here being administrated by the mayor. And so anything that comes to that all caps Shelagh McFarlane, you please direct it to the mayor because he's the power of attorney over it now. So it's an instruction to both the mayor, hey, you're supposed to be fiduciary of this account, get into position, and one to the clerk, hey, that mayor is head of that account, correct the status wherever it needs to go. And then if they chances are they don't answer, but it's similar to Cal Washington's notice of liability, the first notice to admit. So it's basically a notice, hey, what jurisdiction are you in? Are you my trustee or are you not my trustee? Because something fishy is going on here. So there's a maxim in law that says that no answer is an answer. So when mayors and clerks don't answer, they're telling you they're not public. And yet they're administrating public securities. That's huge liability for both of those people, those men and women. So again, we have a duty to try to fix this as safely and effectively as we can. So I start off, the easiest is getting a sitting mayor to re-oath and do this, start the forensic audits, do this on behalf of the area. The next would be for the constituents to start taking action, get a notice, and it's not an official notice, it's just a letter saying, hey, there was a mistake. Because law is very simple. Legal's very complicated. Law is very simple. Do no harm. right? So you use very simple, plain language when you're writing these things because law is also a meeting of minds. If there's no meeting of minds, if I've got a document and I don't understand it, we don't have an agreement. We don't have a contract. So law is always written in plain language. It's always very short. The reason why legal documents are long and complicated is number one, lawyers used to get paid by the word. So the longer the document, the more they got paid. And then they started making these weasel words so that when you were confused, you had to hire a lawyer. And now lawyers get paid by the minute. So the longer, the more complicated the document is, the more they get paid too. But actually, lawyers are just third party interlopers, and we need to get rid of them too. Or at least correct their status where they are only administrating commercial affairs. They're not administrating men and women, which they're doing now. And that's slavery and human trafficking that all lawyers are involved in. So this actually takes down the bar associations and the Crown as well. And so this is a beautiful, peaceful way of correcting status, of correcting jurisdiction. Nobody gets hurt. It's just a reoath. It collapses the crown possession of your birth certificate. It collapses the Vatican possession of your birth certificate, and it puts it back in your control, but being administrated by a proxy or a nominee that is recognized in that commercial system. Men and women aren't recognized in the commercial system, only persons, and that's why people struggle with the UCC filings and trying to claim their property or trying to set up their own trust accounts, is they're not grabbing the entire public security, and it's still being manipulated and administrated by de facto trustees. So it has to be removed from the crown system. And really, it has to be done now because they're collapsing the whole Canada and the whole crown system, right? When the Queen died, that was actually very symbolic that the crown is done. Okay. And when Trump went over in 2017 and walked in front of the Queen, that was indicating to the world that the crown was no longer, the queen and that de facto system was no longer in charge, that he had kind of stepped in. But I don't want to get into the whole Trump in situation. I took it as an indication that now we're initiating the 1,000 years of peace that Revelation explains in the final chapter 20, is that now we're bringing in 1,000, and if we're really good, maybe it's 2,000 years of peace, and we're ending war now because this whole world has been under an economic war via the legal system and via this public security system that they set up in 1930-31. The stock market crash in 29 was a way of collapsing all countries, all governments, and renaming them or recreating them in another capacity, which you know, Karen, right? So when you get into breach of public securities, it gets into pretty dangerous territory. It means that the agenda is controlling all of our birth bonds, all of our publicly registered properties, so the 407s or anything that's considered public property. I've got a case now, or a gentleman out in BC. His family donated a piece of land to the township decades ago under an agreement that it was only to be used for recreational purposes. Of course, the municipalities come in, tried to take over this piece of land and make administrative offices and close down the rec centers and all of that stuff. So we're going in on a small claims of just clarifying what this land is, who it's registered to, and who's administrating it. So people can go into small claims on any issue now and expose this, which I walk through. So when you're getting the public, that your public security, your birth bond now is generating undisclosed security futures. It's underwriting municipal and international bonds, and it's actually being used to fund bioweapon installation in your town. So you're paying for these 5G towers to go up. You're paying for these smart meters. You're paying for this surveillance. You're paying for all these injections via your birth certificate bonds. So you have a duty actually to get this thing out of the United Nations control.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's an option or a theory. We have a duty to get this out of foreign control peacefully if we can. and without involving the military that some people want to do. This is a first attempt of just correct jurisdiction or just challenge jurisdiction and see what happens. It might just crumble in its footprint, and we can control the demolition locally and then reform it lawfully. Without engaging any external being, whether it be a pope or Trump or any other, we can all do it locally, peacefully.
Sheila,
So,
we could listen to you for hours. I
oh,
could.
oh, sorry. Yeah, yeah,
No, it's all good. We just have a few questions here.
yeah, for sure.
First of all, I remember you sharing this at the conference, and especially the part around the birth certificate system, because so many people are attempting to discharge debt and being unsuccessful in so many ways. And here you were the first woman to even express that we've been sending all of our the notices to the wrong people, governor generals and prime ministers, etc. And we just needed to pivot over here to the mayor. So that was brilliant. Yeah, I
I
think.
remember you were jumping up and down in the background when I mentioned small claims. It's only $108. It's available in every local town. And your small claim is that, hey, I don't know what is this birth certificate thing? What you take in your birth certificate and you say, this is the creation of that legal title. Who owns that legal title? Does that belong to me, or does that belong to the crown, or is that under the, so it's a way of going into small claims to get full disclosure of the birth certificate bond so that you can claim that, full disclosure of the legal capacity your mayor is acting in, because he ran as a man or a woman. When I ran for mayor, I ran as Shelagh McFarlane, the woman, to represent you, Karen. I didn't run as a legally registered person, the uppercase Shelagh McFarlane. Well, I had to in the municipal election, of course, but I ran to work for you directly as your trustee. And then that way too, my birth certificate bond is my surety. So if I screw up, that's my insurance bond that you guys can go after if I'm in fraud or malfeasance of office. So my word is my bond. So I can't go off on a tangent with your money. You could end me right there. But yeah, you were jumping up and down with small claims court because it's only $108. You can get in immediately because this is an economic emergency, a local state of emergency, and there's de facto possession by a foreign government. You call in the man or woman that's acting as mayor. So, you would call me in, Sheila. You would serve my home address, Sheila's home address, call me into small claims and say, hey, Sheila, are you a trust? What are you? And while we're here, what's this birth certificate bond? And then you would follow up with an order, which we're going through now, of reclaiming ownership, clarifying that you are the beneficiary of that bond, not the crown, that you are the benefactor of that birth certificate or the grantor, you own the value of it, and that you're not the trustee or administrator of it, that mayor was elected to be the administrator of it. So either put him in that position where he can remove it from de facto possession, and if he's not in that position, you get an order to have it removed. So boom, you've got control of your birth certificate right there, and you've defaulted the mayor as de facto right there.
I love the simplicity of
Right
everything
there.
you talk about. It's brilliant,
Yeah,
Sheila.
yeah. And I see what everybody's doing, struggling to claim the bond, or like, claim the name or copyright the name. Oh, you can't use it, it's mine. No, 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 no. That public security is actually owned by the Crown. The Crown maintains legal title of it. So this is a way of getting back, merging the titles, your beneficial interest in it and the legal interest in it. You're merging those two that were split at birth. And once you merge the beneficial interest with the legal title, you've collapsed that original Crown trust, even though it's collapsed in fraud. So you've merged the public account with the private account. And I have a picture in the protocol. I wish my slides were up, but please download it. It's on page 11. And I explain just how you can collapse your straw man account, the one set up here, with a public and private side, and the T stands for treasury bills, and this is your T line, which Jesus died on the cross. He was actually dying on the collapsing the ledgers of Caesar of the title situation. If you remember, Jesus said, "Stay out of court," right? Don't answer to the name or the title, and pay unto Caesar what is Caesar's. So this is what we're doing in Matthew 6:24 is we're not acting as a title. We're clarifying that this title belongs to the crown. It was made in fraud. Merge those two, the public side and the private side, using the mayor as proxy or nominee or as a public trustee, elected public trustee that's recognized in the system. Oh, there's Waldo again. So the mayor would pull that account up, collapse that original trust, reform a private trust with you or help you do this, and this is where your education will help. He would reopen a private account with your birth certificate. So in other words, putting it into a separate security deposit box. And from there you would have non-commercial status. So you would not need a passport or a driver's license, but you would have some sort of identification to say, hey, you're not part of this freaking system. You're non-commercial. You're a man or a woman. You would have complete control of all the money that's in that account, and then the interest that this money or these, and this is all your house is in here, your car is in here. Right now, it's over here. All your vehicles belong to the crown, right? They're all registered under this account. So you would have complete control, and then the interest that this generates would go towards your local area to pay for your local services. And that only this interest gets administrated by the mayor. Your mayor doesn't administrate your private affairs. That stays private, and that's what you guys are doing. He would just administrate the interest that you give him, which I guess is kind of like a tax, but it's not really a tax, to pay for all your local affairs, and the value of this pays for all your consumer affairs. So it truly is a beautiful system that they designed. The problem was that the Crown never relinquished control of this when you turned 18. They never told us that they did this, so it was made in fraud, non-disclosure. So it's collapsed anyway, and that's why we're in a currency reset, is they've gone, oh shit, people are finding out about
Yeah,
this. We got to start. We got to do something. So this is why Carney is over here to try to reset Canada Inc. into something and pull those securities into another de facto system. Or Trump's trying to pull us into a 51st state, which is again pulling our securities into another de facto system. Do it locally. So your titles and your securities are all local, all kept in a local bank, all administrated just locally, only paying for what you want, can't be used to fund a foreign government. So it truly, yeah, I remember you jumping up and down, and I thought you were telling me my time was out, and I'm going, what the hell? So I kind of got off on a tangent, but yeah, it really is a way of claiming, peacefully claiming your birth certificate bond that was created in fraud, is held under de facto possession, and all you're doing is clarifying, going in and finding out what it is, right? So yeah,
brilliant.
um, and and I go into hijacked all our law and sold us legal services. So we all have to go into court as registered persons that the Crown owns. And then how they use the charter, the Canadian Charter, POG, the Peace, Order, and Good Government clause in Section 91. But it's if you read it carefully, it says they can call an emergency for anything that threatens the peace, order, and good government of Canada. So this means the crown has control of all our peace powers, that we can't call an emergency unless the crown agrees. Well, we saw in COVID what happens there is the crown decided that coronavirus was an emergency, and the crown decided what we were going to do about it. We had no say, the doctors had no say, lawyers had no say, so we've got to pull out of that structure anyway. And because a local emergency might be in one area but not another, and you've got to have the ability. So, yeah, and then finally, I know it's kind of long. I go through the 9 different solutions, and I think where to go. So ultimately, starting at the easiest one would be to get the sitting mayor now in your town to just re-oath under a trust oath. Swear to serve the local men and women and the local area and not the municipal corporation. That's the easiest one. So some people have started to do that, to seek a mayor, and it can be a sitting councillor would be the second option, is to get a sitting councillor to resign from their position on the municipal government and to re-oath as an interim mayor, take control of that area. So there's a couple of councillors that are wanting to do this because they're being slammed by their mayors, one of which is Pickering councillor Lisa Robinson here in Ontario. She's been on, I don't know, 9 months suspension for speaking up and just being slammed by the mayor. Well, she actually could challenge the mayor as de facto and step in as an interim mayor and take fiduciary control and do this for everybody in the area. So that would be the second easiest solution. The third solution would be for any previous candidate that ran in their last local election to challenge it in small claims court, go to small claims court, take the mayor in, say, hey, I think you took the wrong oath, and get disclosure on what that local election was, and an order that you will stand in as interim mayor until a new local public election can be held. And that's what I'm doing now. If I had a bit more backup, I'd be doing it faster, but I need people behind me too, because once I collapse it, I've got to have people in all wards ready to catch the remains, and this, otherwise I'm just another dictator if I go and do this on my own. So anybody that ran in their local election for mayor or councillor can take the winning candidate to court to say, hey, we were supposed to be running for mayor position, you took a head of council position. I guess that means that the mayor seat is vacant and the office is vacant, so you take an order to accept that position on behalf of the constituents because there's a local emergency and you're under de facto foreign control. The fourth option, again, would be to start the notices, that informal notices to your mayor. Hey, there's been a mistake. Please correct it. To the clerk, there was a mistake. Please correct it. You invoked a municipal government. It was supposed to be a local government. If that gets ignored, you do another notice, simple wording. Hey, this is an emergency. I'm ordering you. Well, actually, it's basically you're accepting their oath of office. Hey, you're signing as mayor, which means you're signing as public, you're administrating public accounts, so I'm going to accept your public oath, and therefore you're fiduciary of this account. Go and fix that. A letter to the clerk saying, hey, the mayor now is fiduciary, is power of attorney over this account now. So kick it upstairs and let everybody in the province and nation know. And so the constituent starts to take control, but in a very, very gentle way, just asking questions. If that doesn't work, then you can go to the constituent can take any, either councillor or a mayor, two small claims, get disclosure of their public security. And then we get into emergency estate redemptions, which are your public and private estates, and there's a process of doing those. And then the last two options I say is to send the POG primer and the POG protocol to any lawyer, any judge, any family member that's in those professions. Send them the POG primer and the protocol and ask them if it's the information is correct. Is this a safe way that we can get out of this de facto monetary system and this de facto foreign government? And if it's not, what do they suggest we do? And then the final option is start getting ready. Can you see that? Start getting ready for your next local election. And that's what a lot of towns are doing now, is they're getting people ready to run for councillor, run for mayor, and they will step in at their next local election. And if they lose, they just go to small claims court if the winning candidate takes the wrong oath. They default or disqualify the person elected, and then they step in as interim. So all of this can be over at your next local election, even if the municipalities are running the election. But I see it ending a lot sooner. I think once this information gets out and people realize how we're being manipulated and controlled based on that birth certificate bond, they'll have that aha moment, and we'll see. I'd like to see municipalities collapse by March because they're predicting that the banks will all be closed by June. And there was actually legislation that said all central banks will be closed by end of June of 2026. So that means that either we claim our money now and restore sovereignty at the local level, or they're dumping us into digital currency. That's the fork in the road that we're at right now. And they've told us that they're restructuring the banks, they're restructuring the currency because fiat currency was all fraud and they can't kick this puppy down the road any further. So this is pivotal. I tried to write this as simply as possible. I tried to offer as many solutions as possible for people that didn't cost them a ton of money. It doesn't take years to get to court. You don't got to go to Ottawa to Supreme Court. You just stay in your own town. You deal with your own elected officials locally. Because your MPs and your MPPs, they're all crown officers. They swear to the crown, they work for the crown. They're parliamentaries for the crown, right? You have no control, and the crown actually is just service jurisdiction. It's a corporation with presumed and assumed service jurisdiction over this landmass. And as you know, it was the original Hudson Bay Company that really all they had was authority over trade routes where they could go with their fur trade. They didn't have authority over the land. But the crown comes in, hijacks that, brings over lawyers in 1871. Lawyers change all the wording, take over, and then we're lost. And so we're what, 150 years later in this mess. But this is beautiful because now we can get out of this mess. You can reclaim our local money, start our local economies, and your local economies can go back to being barter. They can go back to having like a recognized money system away from this fiat currency, which is all collapsing anyway. And you're able to pay all your bills, all your consumer purchases by your birth certificate bond until we know what the hell's going to evolve in the next financial system. Because I don't know what the money's going to be. I just know that it's been hijacked and we have no ability to access it other than this way. So that's kind of what I'm going through now. Right now, I've got 5 groups that are prepping to go to small claims court against their mayor. Actually 6 now. And this only came out in July, and people only started hearing about it in September. So we are prepping the small claims court to their mayor to take their mayor in and default their mayor. And yeah, so it's very exciting times. The one is going in under an ice storm cleanup, an invoice for services. They refused to reimburse him for clearing 3 weeks of trees falling down and hydro restoration. So he's going into small claim based on a contract, but will expose who's who in government in that small claim. Another gentleman out in BC is going in, like I said, about a land claim and will expose the jurisdiction and capacity in that claim. And then 3 others are going in against their mayor under one's a trespass. And but basically it's just you go to small claims to get disclosure. $108 and you get your $108 back when you win. So easy peasy, you get an order, you get your birth certificate bond, so you come out of this with both your public and private estates intact and the ability to choose your own trustee, right? Designate your own trustee to handle your private trust accounts, or you can do it yourself if you want to get into that where there's UCC filing and blah blah blah. But I think even Canada Revenue Agency is done, IRS is done, like all of this is done, and the only thing that's keeping it going is our belief, and we have no other sandbox. People don't see another sandbox to go into. Locally is your other sandbox. It's totally out of the litter box that we're in right now. So those are the 9 solutions that everybody can do locally, starting from the easiest. And how I would like to see it is that a sitting mayor does re-oath because they're already in position to start forensic audits on all the accounts. They're already in position to stop signing any agreements or any further contracts. and they're already in position to invoke the office, which comes with that chain of command with the treasury, and they can undo what was done. It would be the easiest, but also because it helps them, it grants them lawful redemption if they didn't know what they were doing, because they're basically in a position now of full liability that where they can lose not only their house and their reputation, but they're seriously in trouble now when people find out that they've been working for pharmaceutical companies, for green energy companies and making huge money, and either didn't do due diligence to find out what the hell they were involved in or did it for profit. They're going down with the ship. So I would prefer it if a sitting councillor or mayor did this because they're in position and can initiate this, set the template for all other mayors to do. But if not, yeah, there's eight other ways that we can do it. And eventually, what
Yeah.
I'd like to see is we have no more mayors anymore. We just use this mayor position because it's an existing political position that's recognized in the banking system, in the crown system, and in the governing system. And we use that title to disengage from all of that fraud, and towns can go back to governing however they want. Maybe when we restore law and there's a court that corrects bad behavior, we won't need a hell of a lot of governance. We can all self-govern and self-determine, because if somebody gets greedy or out of line, there's a court to stop them, and there's a court that provides remedy and restitution, rather than the courts that we have now, which are all about just balancing the ledger and charging the accounts or discharging the account. So,
I know I mentioned to everybody that there is going to be a Q&A at the end, but it's so funny. You are intuitively answering all of these questions in the chat. It's so
oh,
great.
really?
I love it. Because I was going to stop you earlier and ask you a question, and all of a sudden you're answering it. This is brilliant. Okay,
Yeah.
there is one question, though, that I would like to ask you, and I think it was Seeker must have asked it as well. Can you give us examples, like two examples of towns that are actually, where the council members were, oh my gosh, they were shocked to discover the truth and now are taking their power back?
Well, the first counselor I actually met with was Dave Brunel, and he's in the tiny township of Tiny. And because when I finished the protocol in May, June, and I started meeting with sitting councilors and sitting mayors with the information to see if it connected with them, really connected with him. He was ecstatic because he realized what he was involved in and how simply it is to get out. Now, so he's getting a team together of a local council assembly, a great team of people. I think he's got like 20 people behind him, and he is preparing to run for mayor in the next local election. I was trying to tell him that he can do it sooner, but a lot of sitting councilors are nervous. They're getting legal advice saying that, oh, you can't resign, you can't breach your contract with the municipal government. And it's like, yeah, you got to breach your contract because you're in breach trust. So a lot of councilors, although they understand it, they're nervous about doing it because it's confronting the system. The other beauty about the protocol is if a constituent orders it or directs it or wants it, then the counselor can say, hey, my constituents have asked me to clarify my jurisdiction. So they're nervous because this is brand new information, but they're also very excited because they see the power, and not in a bad way, the power of a council position or being counselor of a ward under law would be truly to serve and protect the people. So he was really, really happy to see that, oh, I can become a mayor that takes care of the area. But like I say, he's waiting until next October. If I was in Calgary a little bit sooner, I might have been able to help somebody get ready for your election last October. But again, this is new information. It's clicking with sitting councilors and mayors, but they're nervous of what to do. And the only legal advice they are getting is Crown advice. They're going to the city solicitor. The city solicitor works for the municipality. So the city solicitor is telling them, oh, no, that's bullshit. You're under the municipal act. everything's legitimate, right? And that's what the city solicitor tried to do to me when I ran for mayor. I asked him, number one, where's my oath? And he sent me to the Municipal Act. And number two, I said, no, it would be a public oath. And he came back in an email saying, hey, look, I work for the municipality. I don't work, or I work for the council of the whole. I don't work for you. Go and seek independent legal advice. So counselors aren't getting the proper information, which is why I'm telling them, hey, take this information to a family member that's a lawyer and have them explain that this is public security fraud you're involved in and you have a duty to do it. So it's not that we have any wins because this information is new, but that doesn't mean it's not accurate. So, like I say, they're nervous. Lisa Robinson, I've met with her about 3 times now. Walked her through the protocol. Her lawyer is Michael Alexander, the constitutional lawyer that he was part of the National Citizens Inquiry. But as a constitutional lawyer, he's only seeing that federal and provincial level, right? So he only knows the Constitution stuff. So he's telling Lisa, "Oh no, you're supposed to be doing this, right?" So lawyers won't tell the council, give them the right advice.
Thanks, everyone. Lots of love.
Thank
Take care, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Sheila.
Thank you,
you.
Sheila. That was
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thanks,
Night.
everyone. This is
Thank
awesome.
you,
Sheila.
Yep, get on it,
Discussion,
guys. You know how it was done, so it be undone.
Amen to that.
Amen.
Amen.
All right, thanks, guys.